טוב, ברוכים הבאים, everybody. This evening is devoted to Leilun Nishmat, Ari Fuld HY ben Yona. Ari ben Yona? Ari ben Hashem Yinkom Damo. I always quote what I've heard in the name of an Adam Gadol here in Yerushalayim many years ago, that when we do something Leilui Nishmat, it causes Leilui Neshama to the Neshama above, only to the extent of that which we do Leilui Nishmat Neshama above, if that which we do causes an Leilui Neshama to us here. So, B'ezrat Hashem, B'zchut Rav Hanan, Bina, Yeshiva, could have an evening, which people who are now, people who are B'ezrat Hashem going to come later, will bring about an Ilui Neshama for us here in Olam Hazeh. To that extent, that will bring Ilui Neshama ba'Olam Ha'elyon. The more you delve into the deeper and deeper realms of Torah, you get to see how it's the underlying theme constantly that Torah basically opens up our eyes to see that the two worlds, Olam Ha'elyon and Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, are two parallel worlds. It's reflected in the Mishkan, it's reflected in Yerushalayim Shel Mala, Yerushalayim Shel Mata. There are even those who suggest that Chochmat HaKabbalah, the concept Kabbalah, comes from Lashon HaKabbalah. It's the wisdom of the parallel. HaKabbalah. Makbilot HaLulaot, Achat El Chaverta, in the Mishkan. Okay? So, B'ezrat Hashem, our words should be, are the Leinu, Ari Nishmat, as a result, Leilu Nishmat Ari. To say just two sentences about Ari, we were Baruch Hashem very close. In the year that he was, a couple of years that he was in Yeshiva, one of the years I think I did afternoon, very fast-paced B'kiyut. We had a small group, he was one of them, and we finished Masechtas one after the other, Daf Yomi. I don't know how we did that. We finished like 4 or 5 Masechtas over the course of 1 year. And Ari was there, so we would do Gemara in the afternoon, and we would do karate at night. Back in those days, we had a little karate chug, and he was the only few people on the staff were there. That's where I first met Rav Yoel. That's another story. And the only person of the body of students that we let, as an exception to be part of it, was Ari. And I always kept away from him, and we always kept away from him because that was scary. But I tried once, and that was enough. But I can tell you that it was the same thing, both in the afternoon, and he would come steady, and he would learn, and he would do Chazara on the same strength that he would do his karate class. Anybody who passes away, it's hard to believe that he's not here anymore. And anybody who passes away, if we know the person especially, it takes our mind as to the unavoidable question which does not have an answer to, and that is, where is he? And the closer he is, the more that question rests upon us, and a challenging question, and I think it's a very growth question, and a very much a tshuva-oriented question. It forces you to consider, where is the other world? What does it mean to be in another world? And before the day of death comes of somebody that we're close with, that's in theory, we don't experience it, we don't understand it. But especially somebody as alive, strong, a lion, like his name, it's just till a year passed, and it's very hard to imagine him not alive, him so strong and so alive. Even in the picture that was posted for this evening, he's just so present. Sometimes what they do is, and these things, they dim the picture a little to give a sense that he's not here anymore. But that wouldn't do it to Arya. You have to have him fully present, because that's the way he was, and him and dimming, is that proper English? The dim Ari is not shayach, he's the opposite of that. Tov, what I'd like to talk about this evening is a central concept, if not the central concept, the yesod that all Yom Kippurim stands on. But I'd like to explore it through the source, and the source appears a few times in Shas. But let's go into it from the Gemara Masechet Yoma. And we'll quickly do it. We won't see all the Gemara inside. Just take out the concept, see the way the Rambam talks about it, and from there we'll try to travel into the possible origins of all this in Torah Shebechtav. Okay? So this closing Mishnah in Masechet Yoma talks about the different chilukei kapara, the different types of and aspects of kapara, depending on the severity of the chet or the kula of the chet. But in any case, if you look at the underlying part in the first source, in Mishnah, Sechet Yuma Daf Bey Amud Bet, אומרת המשנה, one of those חילוקי כפרה is מיתה, ויום הכיפורים מחברים עם התשובה. Death בא עלינו, and יום הכיפורים, each one separately, are mechaper, but with tshuva, meaning death brings about tshuva, brings about kapara, but if there is tshuva that comes along with it. One can think of this famous story of Eliezer Dodia, the famous story in the Gemara. But in any case, Yom Kippurim also was mechaper, says the Mishnah, but however, im tshuva. What can we infer from this? Exactly what the Gemara is going to infer from that. If you skip together with me to the Gemara, I underlined it, it's 3-4 lines into the Gemara, 4 lines into the Gemara. The Gemara quotes the Mishnah, מיתה ביום הכיפורים מחברים עם התשובה, מיתה ביום הכיפורים מחברים עם התשובה. אומרת הגמרא, אם התשובה אין בפני עצמן לא, meaning we can infer from the Mishnah that מיתה or יום הכיפורים, each one separately, they're not mechaber without tshuva. Nema delo kerebi. Let's say that our Mishnah is unlike Rebbe, because Rebbe in the following Braita says, the Tanya, quote, Rebbe אומר על כל העבירות שבתורה, בין עשה תשובה, בין לא עשה תשובה, יום הכיפורים מכפר. Except for these unique exceptions. Each one is a world of its own, which one has to understand what is the special aspect of each of these following, and of course, what do they share in common to justify being a category of its own. But in any case, chutz mi megale porekol, different גרסאות, whether you're arrested or not, הוא מגלה פנים בתורה, הוא מפר ברית בשר, שאם עשה תשובה יום הכיפורים מכפר, ואם לא עשה תשובה יום הכיפורים מכפר, end of quote, but these are exceptions. But the non-exception, the rule according to Rebbe is, whether one did tshuva, did not do tshuva, Yom HaKippurim is mechaper. How does the Rambam express this? And this concept doesn't appear only in Yuma, it appears also in Masechet Shavuot and other places. But in any case, when the Rambam brings it down in Hilchot Tshuva, very much at the beginning of Perek Aleph, of the famous Hilchot Tshuva of the Rambam, so the Rambam says on Halacha Gimel, Bazman hazeh, look inside this, she'en Bet HaMikdash kayam, ve'en lanu mizbeach kapara, en sham ela tshuva. Meaning, if we apply that in terms of the concepts of Yom Kippurim, we are neshama parim sfateinu, and we go through all the avodat kohen gadol b'Yom Kippurim, and it's a central theme for us, of course, in terms of the of tefillot Yom Kippurim, musaf Yom Kippurim, and we have a zchut that we have a real kohen gadol that for many years, I don't know this year, that we get to hear through. But in any case, says the Rambam, in our times that we do not have that, en sham ela tshuva. התשובה מחברת על כל העבירות. This is a concept that we know from Chazal, also appears in the Zohar. אפילו רשע כל ימיו ועשה תשובה באחרונה, like the story I mentioned, אין מזכירים לו שום דבר מרשעו, שנאמר, רשעת הרשע לא ייכשל בה ביום שובו מרשעו. אומר הרמב"ם, ועצמו של יום הכיפורים מכפר. לשווים, שנאמר כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם. The Rambam paskins unlike Rebbe, like the Mishnah, and that's the way it's accepted להלכה, יום הכיפורים מכפר לשווים. מי שעשה תשובה, יום הכיפורים מכפר בו. But the Rambam yet emphasizes, even though he paskins like Rabbanan and the Mishnah, and unlike Rebbe, this concept that עצמו של יום הכיפורים is mechaper, and this becomes a known phrase, עצמו, or some call it עיצומו של יום הכיפורים. I asked also Rav Kord and others, I thought it appears in Shas. Rav Kord, did you find anything? מה? לא חיפשת הרבה אחרי זה. מה? לא חיפשת עוד. So maybe it starts in the Rambam, but in any case, this concept of עצמו, later to be known as עיצומו של יום הכיפורים מכפר. Something about the very day of Yom Kippurim. I'm not claiming to, we're going to try to go into it in a moment. מה זה עצמו של יום or עיצומו של יום? It's troubled me for years, somewhat vague and unclear. What does it mean that the day itself brings about kapara? But either way, according to Rebbe, it's more dramatic. That is what does the kapara, even without tshuva. According to Rabbanan, it's also true. It just needs a condition for that, and that is tshuva. If tshuva is there, then the kli or the vessel or the condition is fulfilled, and then that allows for the day to do its work. But it's the day that does the job. You hear it from the Rambam that even according to Rabbanan, it's yet atzmo shel Yom Kippurim mechaper. Otherwise, he would have said it's only shayach to Rebbe, so it's not shayach to Rabbanan. No. Atzmo shel Yom Kippur mechaper. The concept of, there are a few questions to be asked. Number one, what's the term? What's that Atzmo shel Yom? Where did he get that term from? Where's that language from? Atzmo shel Yom. Mazeh, you know that I don't like translating. Mazeh omer, mazeh Atzmo shel Yom. Lumat ma?
Skip it.
What?
You can skip it to say Yom Kippur.
Nachon. Thank you, Rav Dani. That strengthens the questions. Exactly. What do you add by saying Atzmo? Yom Kippur mechaper. There's an emphasis over here. The very day itself. And yet I'll ask you, why does he choose that language specifically in terms of Atzmo? Atzmo or Itzumo shel Yom Kippurim mechaper. מה זה הלשון הזה? מאיפה הוא לקח את זה? What was in front of him when that he selected that word? And we know how selective and thought out every word of the Rambam is. That's number one. The language, the concept. But further, as I said, at least for me many years, it's a concept that was always, I never understood it. It was always somewhat vague. And even more so, I'll say, let me ask you, what really irks us, I don't know, morally or philosophically in terms of concepts of tshuva, to hear such a thing as that the very day itself, mechaper. By the way, mechaper katuv b'kol harishonim. Mechaper, and you can show it, you can see it in Tanakh in many different variations. Mechaper kapara literally means, and it's brought down in earlier sources, later sources, to wipe away. Hakapara mechaperet, that means wipes away the chet. That's what it does. So what does that mean? That the day brings about a kapara. But more so, I'm saying that I find a difficulty with that. Meaning, what difficulty do you hear possibly with the very concept? Especially according to Rebbe. But even according to Rabbana, you know what? To make it to an extreme, according to Rebbe. What bothers us? What should bother us? What? We rank on, and I do this a lot in this classroom, often in front of the Shana Aleph guys at my Shiur, on the Christian concept of repentance. Because how external and how much is just go confess in front of the clergy and you're okay. This is everything that is Jewish tshuva is completely not about. In fact, Yehudi Mitbonen realizes that tshuva doesn't begin in Rosh Hashanah, and the truth is it has early origins. And the whole Hanhaga that's given to us, and that is that we go through Gimel de Puranuta weeks between Yud Zayin Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. And then we have the 7 weeks that link directly Tisha B'Av to Rosh Hashanah. That means that the origins and the roots of Yemei Tshuva go all the way back, at least till, further back, but at least till Tisha B'Av. Which, if you think about it, and the link between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah is the link between Churban and Tshuva, you cannot get to the Yemei Tshuva without Yemei Churban that come from there. And Ben Azmanim, or August, whatever lingo you use, ruins it completely and chops the relationship. And the weeks of the Nahal, people think, we remember the concept of Nacham on Shabbos Nacham, and that's it, it's over. The Haftarahs didn't forget it at all. And it continues still, the gorgeous Haftarah, 7th one, of every year, Parshat Nitzadim, we read Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, this last Shabbat. That's the way we go into Rosh Hashanah, with this Nechama. It's not the topic now. We're not going to attempt right now to define what Nechama is. But a Jew can do tshuva only if he's willing to be mature enough, honest enough, real enough, everything that Christians are not. Face the destructive aspects of his behavior, how ugly are his ways, and how so much only thanks to his sins in action does he get to reveal some hidden, rotten, ripened, immature, cruel possibly, evil, selfish aspects within us that I don't even know may be there, and they only come out through the destructive activities. And then if I take advantage of that, after the fact that I sinned, and on a level of Maisa, that can be a window, if I use it as such, to look inside into my vague inner world, which is hard to pinpoint and to be familiar with, but the actions reveal what goes on. In that sense, Tisha B'Av is a prerequisite for starting the tshuva process, and you cannot get to the tshuva process without the Churban. I need to be able to be mature enough, real and honest enough, as we said, to look in the mirror, realize that how my actions that I'm not proud of, how they reflect aspects in me which have not been fixed yet, and are not yet mature even, I think, or I try to portray myself in other people's eyes as, yes, pieced together and put together mature. I have those parts which I have not developed yet. And they're not put together, and they're not correct, and they're not good, and they're selfish, and all. Kol echad, everybody knows your dad, tzaddik nefesh behemto, and his nefesh behemit. And so in that sense, as Ben was saying, and one can develop this a lot, and we're going to get back into it a little later on this evening, especially according to Rabbi. We rank on and we mock Christians. So that the day itself, since when does a Jew ever get anything without putting effort? That's the underlying theme of all Judaism. You got the Matzat Ta'amin. Where is that Yom Kippurim according to Rabbi? And even according to Rabbanan, why should there be this component that the day does anything if it's all dependent upon my tshuva? That's what's mechaper. By the extent שאני עושה תשובה, עד כמה שאני חוזר בתשובה, זאת בדיוק המידה שבה אמור להיות כפרה. ככה אני חושב. That's what it means. Logical, sensible, moral, correct, real. That sounds like the way Midat Adin would speak. Must not know that there's another realm that takes care of things, according to Rebbe or according to Rabbanan. So let's start language. Lashon HaKodesh. Me'efo HaRambam, let's think together. Tell me what you think. I don't know, but I want to suggest, I have an idea of where possibly the Rambam took this language of Itzumo Shel Yom or Atzmo Shel Yom. Let's think. One way to do it is to put into Google or into Bar Ilan or the combination of those words and see possibly where you may have taken it from. And if you were to do that, what would you possibly find? Atzmo, Yom, Itzumo, Shel Yom. Be'etzem hayom hazeh. Good. Zach said, I suspect that's what the Rambam had in front of his eyes, and that is the biblical source for the concept that a day has an etzem to it, whatever the meaning of that may be. That's a concept that we find not always. Sometimes yes and sometimes not, and that's fascinating to try to figure out when yes and when not. I think you'll try to help me along. We can open up a chumash soon. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first time that the concept of be'etzem hayom hazeh, what do you think? מה אתה אומר, רבי יעקב? בעצם היום הזה, פעם ראשונה, הופעה ראשונה בתורה. What? No, יש בנוח, right, I think בנוח.
באיזה זה נכון.
And then again, I think, in פרשת לך לך עוד ברית מילה, בעצם היום הזה, נימול אברהם, נכון אנשי ביתו? So that's already, these are at least twice in Sefer Bereshit, and then it appears again in Parshat Bo. And it appears there, I think, twice or three times. Be'etzem hayom hazeh yatzu kol tzivot. What would be wrong, like Rav Dani said before? And if there would be be'etzem also there, b'yom hazeh, and we have sometimes b'yom hazeh. B'yom hazeh ba'u midbar Sinai, right? I think in Parshat Yitro. You say, what a significant day, the day that they came to our Sinai. It doesn't say, I think it doesn't say there be'etzem hayom hazeh. What? Yom Ahu. בחודש השלישי לצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, ביום הזה באו מדבר סיני. אבל לא בעצם היום הזה. מתי משתמשים בעצם היום הזה ומתי לא בעצם היום הזה? If it's something which always goes along with the Yom, which is important, so always mention it. Now this continues. It started with Noach and Brit Milah and with Yetziat Mitzrayim a few times in Parshat Bo. ויהי ביקש 30 שנה ו400 שנה, ויהי בעצם היום הזה יצאו כל צבאות השם מארץ מצרים. And then again, we find the terms again in, if I'm not mistaken, in Parshat Emor. In Parashat HaMoadot, in Sefer Vayikra, now some of the Moadim receive that, and some of the Moadim do not receive that. Such as, If I'm not mistaken, Parashat Hamodot Pesach does not mention Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. If I remember correctly, when it comes to Shavuot, Chag HaShavuot, it does. ולחם וקלי וחרמל לא תאכלו עד עצם היום הזה, עד אביאכן את קורבן אלוקיכם. That's regarding, well, that's the first day of, that's the day of Korban HaOmer, עצם היום הזה. And then again, וקראתם, חג השבועות, וקראתם, יום הביקורים, וקראתם בעצם היום הזה נקרא קודש. It's mentioned also in Yom Kippurim, our topic, in Parshat Emor. בכל הנפש אשר לא תעשה כל מלאכה, בכל הנפש אשר תעשה כל מלאכה, בעצם היום הזה ועבדתי את הנפש שהיא מקרב הבמה. Okay? Twice it appears. I think. Yeah, twice it appears in Yom Kippur. Two following psukim. בכל מלאכה לא תעשו בעצם היום הזה כי יום הכיפורים הוא לכפר עליכם לפני השם אלוקיכם, כי כל הנפש אשר לא תאונה בעצם היום הזה ונכנתה מהמאה. Twice and two. One pasuk after the other. סליחה, 3 times. בכל הנפש אשר תעשה כל מלאכה בעצם היום הזה ועבדתי את הנפש שהיא מקרב הבמה. 3 times. מה זה בעצם היום הזה? Anybody suggest anything? כן, הרב דני.
Just back on something. Aren't there, like by Noah, isn't there one Etzem Yom Hazeh that's midday when they want to make a big statement? But the Etzem Yom Hazeh of the Yom Tovim is not the same Etzem Yom Hazeh.
I think Chazal Darshan, maybe what you mean is that about Noah. Regarding, what does it say about Noah?
No, it's also
Publicly?
Like it's public, it's showing.
And also regarding I think the Brit Milah, that it was...
maybe the third and the three, yeah.
Moshe Rabbeinu when he was there.
The what?
Moshe Rabbeinu goes up to the mountain to Niftar.
Etzem Yom Hazeh. That seems to be very different to me than
very different. It strengthens the question even more so, because you would suspect then that those things that we find like in Rashi or the Chazal say are an aspect of, but yet there must be something more intrinsic that would bind all of these be'etzims together. Otherwise, how does it cover the like just like you said when it comes to Parashat Hamodot? It's not an event that happens midday or anything like that. It's what's the be'etzim hayom hazeh? Or I would put it even more bluntly, if it's okay to make such a link, a linguistic link, and that is, what in the world does it mean that a day has a bone to it? If etzem also means a bone. Unless one would say, no, it's completely unrelated. It's the same word in the Shema Kodesh. For etzem, I'm not even sure how they, I've said here recently a lot of times, thank God I don't work for Art Scroll. How in the world did they translate Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh? I don't know. Anybody remember?
Self-same there.
What?
Self-same there.
Ken? Kias and Art Scroll. Huh?
Don't tell her if she loves.
Yeah, I was going to say. How can you go translate that? In a different context, I'm trying to find a translation for
another context.
Shem Asat Adam Yashar. Go translate into English. So I checked. So they translate either as plain or simple. Oh, come on. Those words simply don't do it.
What's inclusive?
What?
What's inclusive?
On Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh?
Yeah.
I checked. I always check and I don't remember. You're right. I want to check. Between Yod and Yen. I'll tell you what I think. La'aniyut dati. Just like the human body has 2 layers to it. There's the layer of the bone and there's the layer of the flesh. One is set, one is constant, one remains even after death. Versus the flesh, which comes and goes and actually rejuvenates itself completely, 100% within a year. By the way, so interestingly enough, in Rosh Hashanah last year, none of what you see was here. It was all transformed, and I think it's not true for the bones. I compare in my mind, I think the duality of etzem and basar as corresponding to the duality of chai v'kayam. V'ata hu melech el chai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. Now also regarding human beings. If a person tells you, that his grandfather is not kayam anymore, he says, what kind of a statement is that? Hu lo chai, because we understand that chai is a chayim of chai olam hazeh. But to say that he doesn't exist, even in English, my grandfather doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. Maybe an atheist, that's a fine sense to say. You popped out of existence. Shem Yishmo. From such thoughts. But we believe that, of course, a human being, how in the world can you be such a fool to think that a human being, not the body of the human being, not B'sar Adam, as the Zohar points out, the Adam himself, the person, the self, the feelings, the emotions, how can you have an Ahava Mina? I mean, some atheist psychologists will say Amos Luban has psychological needs because of this fear of death to convince himself and to use Judaism for something to have a crutch to lean on, that he's so afraid of his death that he needs to invent it in his mind. Come on, take a hike. You want to believe in that nonsense? Beseder. Even the body doesn't pop out of existence. It changes form, the law of the preserving of energy that we know in physics. But it remains, every bit of it remains in the world. It turns to dust. So what? The neshama, the mind that you scientists have no clue what it is, breaks down also into a little piece of mind, and worms, mental worms, eat that like what? Or is the self too integrated to be able to decompose? Happens to be, this is a beautiful example, that our deepest beliefs in Judaism do not come merely from our Sinai, but they come both from our Sinai and from my own thinking. And if one needs a raya to that, so you just open up a Gemara, and often the Shas will say, how do I know? This Gemara says, if I'm able to, Svara. Sometimes there are places in Shas, the Gemara says that if I have a Svara, why do I even need a pasuk for that? Use your logic. Just think straight. And then people blame from people that they have no way to think for themselves because they're bound to Har Sinai. Open up Sefer Derech Hashem, the very beginning, first beliefs of Judaism. He immediately goes out of his way to say, and these beliefs we know about God, based on both of the Masorah, and based, you can come to the same conclusions if you just think well enough. That's a Jew. These are the two legs that Torah stands on. Anyways, so just like a human being has has bones and he has flesh, one is his constant eternal part, manifested physically. All these discussions about relevant Inyani Diyoma. Some people say that they should bring now the bones of Rabbi Nachman to Eretz Yisrael. The bones represent that which remains, represents his kiyum, his eternity. The flesh comes and goes. So, I understand also that's the kayam versus chai. That's the flesh. It's the following. And that is when the Torah emphasizes, such as on Yetziat Mitzrayim, be'etzem hayom hazeh, it's not happening on just another day. It's happening on, it's hard to put into words, on the bone of the day in a sense that, and the intrinsic essence of that day. And it can only happen on that day because of what that day in its essence means, that content which a great aspect of it is beyond us. Some aspects of the Torah are revealed to us. And then there is that day that keeps coming and going, and that's the flesh aspect of the day. So, food for thought. Okay? But in any case, something along these lines. When the Torah refers to it, etzem, it means it's not looking at the day from the passing element of that day, but rather there's something intrinsic about that day specifically, a deeper essential place that moed brings out, or that the events that which describe that be'etzem are referring to. I feel what I'm saying is vague because it's vague in my mind, but I'm suggesting at least a direction to think about it, putting it in a certain context. Yes, Rav Dan.
How does it connect to Noach?
Huh?
How does it connect?
Right, so that I was going to say myself, but if there's any truth to it, one has to go and check each one and say, what does it mean? What does it mean here? What does it mean here? What does it mean here? Why does it express it here? And again, Libi Omerli, that what we find in Rashi in those places, things that were said, are symptoms of something more intrinsic. It doesn't belittle it. It's not, something like you in the Zohar, you would find that he would relate more to like, what is the etzem saying? What? Okay. Going and delving into, trying to somewhat explore Atzmo Shel Yom, I'd like to do that by delving into the Torah Shebechtav of Yom Kippur. Okay? We don't have too much time. Time is it? Time is it then?
9:40.
Well, so let's start running. Look inside, please. Take page number 2. Page number 2. This is, if I were to ask, what is the source, the Torah Shebechtav for Yom Kippurim? You would respond correctly so. The laming for Yom Kippurim morning. When we read Pirat HaTorah right after Shacharit Yom Kippurim, Zeh Hayom b'Torah Shebechtav, and that's the longest description, and that's the description that contains the Avodat Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippurim, which becomes the basis of what we say in Musaf. Parashat Achrei Mot, just starting it off, as we all know, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe, Acharei Mot Shnei Bnei Aaron v'Korvatam Lifnei Hashem v'Yamutu, which happened and took place in Parashat Shmini, on the day of Aleph Nisan, the day of the completion of the Mishkan, which was meant to be one of the most special, happiest days of Klal Yisrael, which it was. Yet, even though in Sefer Shemot not a hint is even mentioned, but in Sefer Vayikra, all of a sudden a whole other aspect of the day comes out, and that is the tragic death of Nadav and Avihu, who brought fire and fire into the inside of the Mishkan when they were in fire that they were not commanded, and as a result, a few parshiot later, in relationship to Shmini, that is, we find Parshat Achrei Mot, and that's don't. ואומר השם למשה, דבר אל אהרון אחיך, ואל יבוא בכל עת אל הקודש, מבית הפרוכות אל פני הכפורת אשר על אהרון ולא ימות, כי בענן יראה אל הכפורת, בזאת יבוא אהרון אל הקודש. This is the way you go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, this is the way you go in, and we go and give a long description, which is the basis of the Mishnayot of, and then the Gemara of Masechet Yuma, gorgeous Masechet, based on darshaning all the psukim over here. And that's the basis for that which we say in whether it's one nusach or the other in the machzor for Avodat Kohen Gadol Yom Kippurim. And only at the end, so interestingly enough, if this was Chumash and I would say this piece, what title do you give it? People would say Yom Kippur. I would say I'm not so sure that's true. Rather, maybe the definition should be how do you go into Kodesh HaKodashim, because that's the way it started off. Only at the end, tail, do we say, it's almost like there's a lacking, by the way, this happens on Yom Kippurim, which comes at the very end. Achat b'shana, vayta lachem, look, skip together with me to the closing psukim, in the second column, pasuk kaftet, vayta lachem lechukat olam b'chodesh hashvi'i b'asor lechodesh ta'anut nafshotechem b'chol melacha lo ta'asu, but that's not the way we went into it. We went into it by the fact that Nadav and Avihu made a mistake. And we're learning from the mistake, and we're learning what not to do from their mistake. And that leads us to the whole way of going into Kodesh HaKodashim. By the way, this happens on Yom Kippur. That's at least what the way it sounds like. So this is the capital teaching. This is the presentation of Yom Kippurim and Torah Shebechtav. Others, what other do we have? We have in Parshat Emo. We read a bit from it, not in the sources here. The list of the Parashat HaMoadot. So we had Parshat Emo, list of Moadot. Yom Kippurim. We have the presentation in Torah Shebechtav of Yom Kippurim is Parshat Achrei Mot, and we have another mentioning of course in the Korbanot Musafim that we read actually in the Maftir from Parshat Pinchas, as we do with all the Moadim, and that's it. So, is that it? Yosef, rega. Till now you were talking about Yom Kippurim, and that's presented in Sefer Vayikra. We're touching upon one of the most, at least for the Rav Amos Luban, one of the most fascinating aspects of Chamisha Chumshei Torah. The way I formulated for myself today as I was driving down from the Golan was, Torah expects us Jews to gradually over our life learn to acquire a pair of glasses called Torah Moshe. Nothing less than that. The extent by which I acquire those glasses, to that extent, I see the world the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the world. That's the way that I always quote this. Some of you may have heard this already before. I remember some years ago I read it somewhere and I thought, wow. Baal HaTanya, Admor HaZaken, Dr. Rebbe of Chabad, the way he explains the pasuk in Parshat Ba'alotcha, when Hashem stands up for Moshe, in light of what Miriam says at the end, the Lashon Hara that she says about her brother, and Hashem stands up for Moshe and says, and he's this, and he's this, and he's that. And one of the things Hashem says is, Utmunat Hashem Yabit. Utmunat Hashem yabit. Most of the Farshim explain it. He sees some kind of heavenly vision, some kind of a mar'eh nevuah elokit, and the so typical of Chassidut, Dafka of Chabad. They twist it around, but in a deep way, in a way that gives you, when you sense is not a cute fort. Chabad is not cute. Rather, you sense, wow, this may be a deep, deep realm of Omek HaPshat. Utmunat Hashem yabit. אותה תמונה שיש להשם לעולם, זה התמונה של משה. The way I see the world, that's the way Moshe Rabbeinu sees the world. So therefore, how dare you speak against him? He sees the world. He worked on himself and he reached a level that we have the same world view. We have the same picture of reality. That's the Tmunat Hashem. You hear the subtle twist of the puzzle. Gorgeous. And what it means for us, we all receive Torah Moshe to learn from and to grow from. That means the extent by which I absorb and internalize Torah, I'm expected to switch my pair of glasses and to gradually move towards not seeing the world through the headlines of the newspapers, but seeing the world through the eyes of what Torah claims to be he who really writes the headlines in the papers, and that is he who is unseen, the unseen puller of the strings behind the scene. From a world beyond here, the source of things, which people won't see because they don't see, and if that's a realm that you don't see. So people who are wrapped up in overly visual, physical, sensual perspective do not pick up on it. Torah begs us to work on ourselves to realize there's a deeper realm. Anyways, Tmunat Hashem Yabit. How do we get to this? Remind me?
We discussed how because of
So today I said to myself, the truth is, it's not a matter of learning to be okay with switching my glasses to Torah pair of glasses. It's willing to be okay with switching to 5 pairs of glasses. First, the glasses of Sefer Bereshit, and then the glasses of Sefer Shemot, and then of Vayikra, and then of Bamidbar, and then of Devar. And this is what I meant. It's one of the most fascinating things I think in Chamisha Chumshei Torah. That each chumash is a different pair of glasses. And it's most fascinating when you talk about the same item and different chumashim talk about the same item completely differently. A classic example of which we were there some weeks ago, and that is Chetem HaRaglim. As Sefer Bamidbar looks at it in Parsha Shlach, Chetem HaRaglim, the way Sefer Devarim looks at it in Parsha Devarim. 2 worlds, lichora completely contradictory in many ways. Not only in terms of historical events, but even halachically. If issues that are going to come up in Parshat Mishpat and then Parshat Kitei, it's a fascinating world. Why this aspect of Eved Ivri came up in Mishpat, and this aspect of Eved Ivri has to come back to Afghan and Sefer Devarim. And why Shmitat Ksafim here, and Shmitat Kakao there? It's a world. Books and books can be written in it. At least speculations are trying to understand. Fascinating. So, Yosef is bringing up here. We've been talking about Sefer Vayikra, and a bit in Bamidbar is predominant Sefer Vayikra, the way it looks at Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippurim is a definition that's invented by Sefer Vayikra, Parshat Achrin Mod, Parshat Elor, and then again Parshat Pinchas. Seems to be some kind of a follow-up on that. Comes Yosef and says, wait, switch to page 2, and we'll find, to page 1. Page number 1, source number 3, Parshat Kitisa. That's the way Sefer Shemot looks at Yom Kippurim. So you'll say, yeah, its truth is, the Parsha of Chet HaEgel, Parshat Kitisa, is very long. And the whole story there is extremely lengthy. But the truth is, why are you claiming that it's Yom Kippurim? Yom Kippur is not even mentioned there once. Correct, it's not mentioned there even once. Even though it's directly hinted a moment before Chet HaEgel. When we talk about the Mizbeach HaKtoret, the Psukim already basically explicitly are talking about Achat B'Shana and the concept of Kippurim. And yet, once we go into Chet HaEgel, very long, that's the main chunk of Parshat Kitisa, Yom Kippurim is not mentioned. But it's only with the assistance of Chazal and Rashi that it already appears in the Midrashim. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu, will say this very much in short, that Moshe Rabbeinu goes up, that he received the second set of Luchot on Rosh Chodesh Elul. And that's when they blew the shofar, according to Pirkei Rav Lezer, as the Torah brings down, that's when we blow the shofar from Rosh Chodesh Elul and on. And he goes up for the last time for 40 days. which means he comes down on the 10th of Tishrei on Yom Kippurim. And that is already recorded in Masechet Ta'anit, at the end of the Masechet, Lo Hayu Yomim Tovim LeYisrael Ki Yetu B'Av Yom Kippurim. So the Gemara says, Yom Bishlam Yom Kippurim, I understand. That was the day that the second Kippurim were given. Then Rashi gives there, and also Parshat Ki Tisa, an entire calculation of the days, and they shows you. In fact, it was the story of Parshat Ki Tisa. Moshe Rabbeinu coming down with the second set of Luchot comes down on Yom Kippurim. But what's fascinating is the day is not mentioned. We're not told the 10th of Tishrei, and we're not told the term Yom Kippurim. None of that is mentioned over there. But our sources teach us that one should know it's Yom Kippurim. So just it's very, very long, but if I took out one piece, looks inside source number 3. Let's read this quickly inside. ויאמר משה אל השם, ראה אתה אומר אלי העם את העם הזה ואתה לא ידעתני את אשר תשלח עמי. ואתה אמרת ידעתיך בשם וגם מצאת חן בעיניי. I'm emphasizing these terms, you'll see in a moment why. ואתה אם מצאתי חן בעיניך, הודיעני את דרכיך. Please teach me your ways. ודעך למען אמצא חן בעיניך. וראה כי עמך הגוי הזה, ויאמר פניי אליך והניחותי לך. There's a lot here to explain that we can't right now. ויאמר אליו, אם אין פניך הולכים מעתה עלינו מזה, as a result of חטא העגל, Hashem says, I'm not coming along with you. I'm going to send an angel. Moshe says no, which is exactly, of course, what Hashem wants to hear. That is, he says, if you're not coming along with us directly, then we're not going. Hashem says, I accept that. Notice that how many times that term appears. הלא בלכתך עמנו ונפלינו אני ועמך מכל העם אשר על פני האדמה. The Gemara teaches us that Moshe Rabbeinu has 2 requests over here. That he should have his Shechina rest upon Klal Yisrael. He himself, לא מלאך ולא שרף ולא שליח, rather he himself, like in יציאת מצרים, and also שלא תשרה שכינה על עובדי כוכבים, על אומות העולם. And it continues. ויאמר השם אל משה, גם את הדבר הזה אשר דיברת אעשה, כי מצאת חן בעיניי ודעך בשם. ויאמר הריני נא את כבודך, ויאמר אני אעביר כל טובי על פניך וקראתי בשם השם לפניך וחנותי את אשר אחון וריחמתי את אשר ארחם. ויאמר לא תוכל לראות את פניי כי לא יראני אדם וחי. ויאמר השם הנה מקום איתי ונצבת על הצור והיה בעבור כבודי ושמתיך ונקראת הצור וסקותי כפי עליך הדוברי והסירותי את כפי וראית את אחורי לפניי לא יראו. ויאמר השם אל משה פסול לך 2 לוחות אבנים כראשונים וכתבתי על הלוחות את הדברים אשר היו על הלוחות הראשונים אשר שיברת. סקנד לוחות. ויהיה נכון לבוקר, ועלית בבוקר להר סיני, ונצבת לי שם על ראש ההר, ואיש לא היה לעמך, וגם איש על ירה בכל ההר, גם הצאן והבקר על יראו את מול ההר ההוא, ויפסול 2 לוחות אבנים כראשונים. וישכם משה בבוקר, ויעל אל הר סיני, כאשר ציווה השם אותו, ויקח בידו 2 לוחות אבנים. וירד השם בענן, עניין דיומא, we say this. ויתייצב עם משה, ויקרא בשם השם, ויעבור השם על פניו, ויקרא השם, קר רחום וחנון. ערך אפיים ורב חסד באמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה, etc., etc. And this is where it finishes off פסוק ט' ואומר הנה מצאתי חן בעיניך, ילך נא השם בקרבנו, וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ונחלתנו. Again, this is the first Yom Kippurim. We know it's on the 10th of Tishrei. And the Gemara in Ta'anit, but Rashi says it explicitly, says this is where Yom Kippurim comes from. Meaning, why the 10th of Tishrei? Shana guy may say, why not? I always say there is no why not in Torah, only why yes. Why the 10th of Tishrei? Why in the world the 10th of Tishrei? It goes back to the first year that establishes Klal Yisrael. Also the first annual year has its origins over there, is engraved into time. Then Yetziat Mitzrayim, Matan Torah, Chet HaEgel, the process of the Tikkun, the final stage is the last 40 days. Whether he went 3 times, 2 times, but in any case, everybody agrees the Kuli Alma last time is the 2nd or 3rd, but he goes up to receive the 2nd Luchot, Rosh Chodesh Elul, 40 days, they complete themselves on Yud Tishrei, Hashem forgives us for Chet HaEgel, and this is the story, and Yosef is correct. This is Yom Kippurim, the way Sefer Shemot looks at Yom Kippurim, Sefer Vayikra looks at it differently. But the truth of the matter is, it's very, very, very different. Number one, Yom Kippurim is not mentioned, as I said. And Bechlal, we're not talking there at all, as that event, Parshat Ki Tisa, does not we don't come out of Parshat Kitisa with a day that we come back to annually. There is no such a metzias. It's not just that we don't call it Yom Kippurim. It's not that we said, yeah, every year now we're going to go back there, but then we just don't call it Yom Kippurim. We don't have such a day. Nobody is even talking in those terms. All that we have is Chet HaEgel goes through the Smichila Gemara. Now the truth is, it's absolutely fascinating. Why? Because think about it. Only in Sefer Vayikra, when Nadav and Avihu make their mistake, does Yom Kippur receive its content the way we know it, the way Parshat Acharemot defines it, with all the Avodat Kohen Gadol Yom Kippurim? And only then it becomes a Yom Kippurim that you go back to annually, as the end of Parshat Acharemot. If it wasn't for Nadav and Avihu, it wouldn't have become, so it seems, an established annual day that you go back to. That we're going to go back to, in fact, in Parshat Emor. It's part of the annual cycle, Parshat Emor. It ends up being fascinating. Instead of erasing the board, I'll use my fingers instead. Chet HaEgel brings about the need for Slicha Mechila, which gives birth a few months later, on the 10th of Tishrei, to Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippurim as a result. That first Yom Kippurim in Parshat Kitisa, it's not called yet Yom Kippurim, but the 10th of Tishrei, let's call it. The 10th of Tishrei, we know from our sources. As a result, the next day, Parshat Vayakel, we gathered Bnei Yisrael, we're told, build a Mishkan, so that it expresses the fact that Hashem indeed forgives you for Chet HaEgel. They do that the whole winter, until the day of the completion of the Mishkan, which is actually, it's built and starts performing as a Mishkan, and Shekhinah goes in. What day of the year is that? What date in the year is the day that the Shekhinah comes into the Mishkan for the first time? Aleph Nisan. Aleph Nisan, that's the day that is the product of Yom Kippurim. Yom Kippurim brings about a forgiveness for Chet HaEgel. As a result, we can build a Mishkan, Mishkan HaEdut, Edut Ti Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kippur Lanu Al Chet HaEgel, as Rashi brings down, Chazal bring down. And as a result, we have Aleph Nisan. What happens on Aleph Nisan? The mistake of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu end up resulting in what Yom Kippurim actually becomes. So Yom Kippurim gives birth to Aleph Nisan. Aleph Nisan gives birth to Yom Kippurim. It ends up becoming this interesting, vicious cycle that produces Yom Kippurim. Think of how many stages it takes for Yom Kippurim to come into existence. We need to go through Chet HaEgel and go through a process of tikkun, and then build a Mishkan and go through the Nadav and Avihu mistake to then maybe only the following Yom Kippurim it actually comes into existence. That means you need an entire, at least one entire, if not a year and a half, of a Jewish cycle of coming into themselves for Yom Kippurim to come into the way we know it. Or looking at it differently again. When you put on the glasses of Sefer Shema, you look at the day, as Yosef mentioned, it's a totally different Metzias. And then you know what? The concepts are also completely different. The concepts of Acharemot, Kapara. Look, I underlined all the appearances of the term Kapara and all of its variations in source number 2, including Kaporet, Lashon Kapara. I counted, you can try afterwards, I counted very quickly as I was eating lunch today. Interesting number, 22 appearances of Shorish Kapar in Parshat Acharemot. You can check afterwards and see if I was accurate. Okay? Interesting. If indeed it is 22, thought-provoking. You'll agree that it's at least thought-provoking. And anyways, the concepts are kapara, tahara from tum'ah. Keep, for example, pasuk lamed that really brings it up. Ki bayom hazeh yechaper alechem letaher etchem mikol chatotechem lifnei Hashem titaharu. The concepts are kapara, 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 tahara, tahara mitum'ah, avonot. The terminology in Sefer Shemot, in Kitisa, is completely, totally different. I emphasized it, and I kept emphasizing, take the other page again. None of that is happening. There's no terms of kapara here. And there's no terms of tahara, mitum'ah. What we're talking about is seemingly, very vague term, seemingly so out of place, metziat chen. Metzat chen b'nai, metzat chen b'nai, metzat chen b'nai. Where does metzat chen come from? The tikkun for Chet HaEgel and the forgiveness of Chet HaEgel is not based on the concept of Sefer Vayikra. Kapara and Tahara are terms that indeed belong very much to Sefer Vayikra. Sefer Shemot doesn't use that terminology at all. It's all talking about Metziat Chen. What does it mean to be Motzei Chen? Why Motzei Chen? Motzei Chen has such a positive connotation. In fact, Motzei Chen, not only that, it continues. At the Motzei Chen becomes the definitions. Because Hashem says, I will bring my kavod in front of you. Pasuk Yutel again, in the first column. ויאמר אני אעביר את כל טובי על פניך. וקראתי בשם השם לפניך. וחנותי את אשר אחון, וריחמתי את אשר ערכם. מה זה וחנותי? It's the application of that chen. מה זה וחנותי? חז"ל say, וחנותי את אשר אחון, אף על פי שאינו ראוי. וריחמתי את אשר ערכם, אף על פי שאינו כדאי. What we would call in English, though you know I don't like to translate pardon, like a president can Chanina. That means it's at a certain. It's like when the law has in it, or God's law has in it, an opening of what we would call in our language lifnei mishuvat hadin. The din really says no, the person needs to remain in jail, but in special, unique situations, from a different, totally higher place, we allow for this pardon to come in, and that is rooted in the matzati chen, because matzati chen, that's the shorish of the chanoti. Chanoti is already the verb of chen. I apply chen, and that of course comes through, and you give them midot shel rachamim. Hashem Hashem kel rachum v'chanun. Now this is not at all pashut. As I said earlier, I think rightly so, we mock the Christians for their repentance. So what does it mean? What does the God say? And I'll give them, I will pardon them. Another related term is the word chinam. Matnat chinam. How does that relate? It means when you don't deserve something and you get it anyways. That's a matnat chinam. This is coming from the same shorish. Another example of that shorish, choni hame'agel, who exactly, that's the relationship that he had with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. The truth is you deserve so and so. How do you dare speak against the Kadosh Baruch Hu that way? The famous Gemara Masechet Ta'anit. But what can we do? You have such a relationship like a child with a father. So, and his name is, of course, can't be any other name other than choni. That's his unique metzias. It is nosechen, motzechen b'nei Hashem. But we mock the Christians. Where does tshuva fit in? As Ben said, or other people said, Yagat al-Matzata, where's the Yagat al-Matzata over here? In fact, Chazal teaches, Kol omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu vatran, yivatru me'av. It's a very harsh term. Anybody who dares to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgoes, is that proper English? Forgoes. Let his intestines forgo. Why not intestines? Forgot. Why not his thumb? But you can't dare say it. Kadosh Baruch Hu, no, midat hadin. You get what you deserve. All of a sudden, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives a free gift. How does it mesh? What's the difference between us and Christians then? So we need to wrap up. I suspect the secret is as such. Vayikra, Yom Kippur, and Sefer Shemot Yom Kippur, even though it's not called so, are taking place in two different places. One takes place in Har Sinai. One takes place in the Mishkan. That's significant. The mountain versus the Mishkan is a different appearance of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. The mountain hovers above me, above us. It's higher than me. Anything that I have in contact with is from Tziyut, which is higher than me. Why did it have to happen in a mountain? Why did Hashem have to? Lama Gilui Har Sinai has to come in a mountain? Because of whatever a mountain represents. It's elevated. It's beyond. It's higher. It hovers above Olam Hazeh. The Mishkan is when the Shekhinah comes down. Hence, by definition, the Mishkan comes down from the mountain into the realms of our world. Hence, Hashochen Itam, which we say here in the context of Yom Kippurim, Betoch Tumotam, here on earth, in Olam Hazeh. And the tshuva, therefore, is completely different, and the tikkun is completely different. When the possibility of the forgiveness of the chet comes from the mountain, that means it comes from a place which is higher than me, and higher than my activity, and higher than my choices. It comes from a place called mitziat chen. We'll elaborate on that in a moment, and we'll see exactly how we differ from Christians. Once, though, we advance into the next stage, Sefer Vayikra, I believe it's a more mature stage. That's already when the Shekhinah is no longer at the top of Har Sinai, merely. Rather, here, the lev kol echad ve'echad, as the Mishkan teaches, as Chazal teaches, the Shachanti betochan, in the heart of everyone, the Mishkan is in our camp, in the midst of me, it's already much closer to home. That already, the Torah needs to, or I need to, or Yom Kippurim needs to already check whether I contain within me, and whether I can contain within me the Shekhinah, or whether I have all kind of barriers and blockages in me that prevent that. And that necessitates already concepts of Tahara, Mitu'ah, and that requires Kapara, and all the terminology that we find with all the Avodah. Once Yom Kippurim came down the mountain into us, and into the world of Olam Hazeh, it becomes the Sefer Vayikra, Parshat Achrimot, Parshat Emor concepts. But in Sefer Shemot, we're not yet there. We're in a higher place. And what is that higher place? And why are we not Christians? The answer is pashut. Somebody who goes to the clergy and confesses, just to be yotzei the chiyuv, to do so, he is not motzeh chen one bit in the eyes of Hashem. To be motzeh chen in the eyes of Hashem, one needs to live in a way that is motzeh chen b'nei Hashem. And when one lives in such a way, he can draw his existence and forgiveness from that part and place of the chanoti. You don't deserve it, but from a place of our special and unique relationship where you are motzeh chen b'nei v'chanoti, and I'm giving you from that place of matnat chinam. In fact, what is that place of mitziat chen? And what is that place that therefore is relevant to me? Because we could come out of this and say, the truth is Parshat Shemot, Parshat Kitisa that Yosef brought up is the origin of Yom Kippurim is not relevant to me. Wrong. Because of the following pasuk in Sefer Mishlei, Omer Kach, and we'll wrap up with that. Im leletzim hu yalitz. I think the pasuk says, Hashem mocks the mockers, or mocks the cynics. Ve'la'anavim yiten chen. Almost all psukim, if not all psukim in Sefer Mishlei, are contrasts. This versus the opposite. It's the letz versus the anav. Interesting that that's the contrast. The letz, the mocker, the cynic, versus an anav. Ve'la'anavim yiten chen. Who receives from above and beyond, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu chen? The person who's genuinely humble. And the truth is, check with yourself, and you will realize exactly what Shlomo Melech says. And that is the people who are genuinely humble. And to the extent that we sense ego and arrogance, to that extent, there's something about the person that I can either pinpoint or not, that we want to run away from. Anava invites chen, just like Shlomo Melech says. Meaning, drawing from that higher place, which is the matnat chinam, from mitziat chen b'nei Hashem, comes to the person from beyond him as a gift from above, not as a result of the tshuva and the kapara that he goes through, but rather because he's motzeh chen, which that sits on one thing, and that is his anava. Interestingly enough, what do we say every morning when we say slichot? Kemo, what? Kemo shodat al anav mikedem. Why all of a sudden here we relate to Moshe as anav? We can find so many other terms. Why not call him Moshe? No! That's in the context of introducing Yud Gimel Midot Sharachmin. There he is introduced as anav. Because that's the whole point. Yud Gimel Midot Sharachmin, which is not the ways of din in the world, that's not the ways of justice of the world, that's from a higher place. One can draw from that place, from that midah called anava, v'la'anavim yiten chen. I want to wrap up and claim the following, and that will be the end of today. I'm giving it as possible food for thought. There's two realms, as we saw in the Gemara, and there's two realms of tshuva, as we saw in the Rambam. There is the tshuva processes that we go through, and that's as we call it, the yagata u'matzata. To whatever effort I put in, and to whatever extent I cleanse myself and purify myself, to that extent that we expect there to be tikkun and tshuva and ta'ara and kapara. And these are concepts that belong to Sefer Vayikra. Sefer Shemot is the earlier stage. It's the birth of Yom Kippurim. It's the origin of Yom Kippurim. It's not holding in these places yet. It's a place where I draw my forgiveness from HaKadosh Baruch Hu from a completely different place. And that is from a place of what might be, and I'm suggesting this, and I did not see this anywhere, maybe that's that realm called Itzumo Shel Yom, or Atzmo Shel Yom. There's something about Yom Kippurim that hovers higher than my activities, above me, and comes down to me, intrinsically positioned in the actual essence of the day itself. And that's the Atzmo Shel Yom. And that is possibly, I'm suggesting, the Sefer Shemot face of Yom Kippurim that precedes Sefer Vayikra. And that precedes all the kapara, tshuva, tahara processes that it means already. That's when the Shekhinah is already here. And the Hashochen itam betoch tumatam necessitates that all these processes go through. If the Shekhinah is already present in my life and in me. But Sefer Shemot, we're not holding there yet. We're holding at a mountain. And a mountain, the Shekhinah hovers above. And from that place which is from above, and that's the origin of where Yom Kippurim comes from. That Yom Kippurim is not even called yet Yom Kippurim, as we said. And it has not yet even become a day that we go back to. That's still at the mountain stage, at a higher stage, that may come down into what we know as Itzumo Shel Yom, that then there's machloket, Rabbi and Chachamim, whether you need to do tshuva or you don't need to do tshuva to draw from that place. But that is the origin of Yom Kippurim. The first meeting with Yom Kippurim, and that's the way we enter into Yom Kippurim. Interestingly enough, we start and end Yom Kippurim with the Yud Midot Shel Rachamim. According to what we're saying, maybe with this Itzumo Shel Yom, which begins and ends the day. The center of the day is not. Therefore, it's in the center of the day we find Avodat Kohen HaGadol Shel Yom Kippurim and the Vidui and all that. But it's the beginning and the end that we get the other realm, the Sefer Shemot face of Yom Kippurim. It's a completely different place. And if a person says, yeah, but that's a place I can't get to, and I can't, it's not a product of my avoda, because what I mean, I can try to be motzeh chen in B'nai Hashem. There's nothing more disgusting than somebody who's trying to be motzeh chen. Chen is only always we feel towards somebody who's not trying to be motzeh chen. That's why we feel that he's motzeh chen in our eyes. They're similar to kavod. Kol avodef min hakavod. Kavod runs after motzeh chen. If you're trying to be motzeh chen, it's like trying to find kavod. That exactly is when kavod runs away. So I think the answers are two, which are one. Number one, we saw v'la'anavim mitan chen. The way to work on mitzvah, to be motzeh chen b'nei Hashem, la'anavim mitan chen. Como שהודעת לענב מקדם, כמו שכתוב. We work on our anava. As a byproduct, לענבים ייתן חן, חן is bestowed upon us from above. That's number one. Number two, I think there are two, both related, highly recommend, and something to learn during the year with one's wife, with Chavrusa, Sefer Tomer Dvorah, one of the most important Sifrei Musar and Avodat Midot ever written, and it's basically the development in how in our life, the Ramak explains, do these higher midot, the more lofty midot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Yud Gimel Midot Shel Rachamim, express themselves and become midot that I can actually work on in the same way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can say, yeah, you don't deserve, but anyways, that I can live in such a way, you don't deserve, but anyways, very highly recommended. Kedai to learn. It takes Avodat HaMidot, a completely different league, to that place where Yud Gimel Midot Shel Rachamim come from. Shana Tova, Gmar Chatima Tova, Toda Rabba.